let me go into what I mean by social status. So for a man, social status is about reputation. It's, to be looked at and revered by your male counterparts. Men, we really take pride in having a good reputation. Historically, men have wanted to protect their last name, because your name for a man means something. You don't want a wife, your children to damage your name, because men know that their name, their status, their reputation, it protects them. People want to do business with you. People want to employ you. People want to be your friend. So name is very, 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 very important. So I wanted to just kind of really highlight social status. Something Fresh or Fit always mentions, even though it's some things I disagree, but one thing they always mention when it comes to cheating, for example, they always say that the reason why men do not like for women to go to like clubs or go certain places, and that women should listen to their man, is because they don't want that woman to embarrass him. They do not want that woman to embarrass him. And unfortunately, in this world, and this is not limited to the United States, but just in pretty much most Western or liberal societies, women do not care about a man's reputation and social status. Women understand social status. That's why they won't be honest about how many men they slept with. They want to maintain this image because they don't want this image of being a 304. So when it comes to themselves, women understand the importance of social status, because if you labeled as a 304, it can affect you with relationships, business wise, with certain people may want to hang around with you, etc. So we understand women want to protect their reputation. That's why a lot of men try to do things so they don't make a woman, so they won't embarrass the woman. Now, I'm gonna go over three different ways women have ruined the social status of men. And this doesn't necessarily apply to like men that are like Pookies and Ray Rays. This is more towards men that consider themselves, stand up guys. So one way women ruin men's social status is that they'll have babies with a man, and let's say this man, he's successful, or he's hardworking, or he's, let's just say he might be, very religious, a community leader, whatever, but he's a stand-up guy. When you look at this man, or if you know this man, you know that he's not going to be he's not going to fit the profile of being a deadbeat father. So what happens a lot of times is that women have these children by great men, and for whatever reason, when they're not together, when they're not together, they keep, a lot of them through vindictive ways, they'll keep that child away from that man for whatever reason. Now, how does this affect Why does this affect stand-up men? It's because when you're a man and you're productive in society, you're unselfish. A lot of people have a lot of respect from you. They can't imagine why you don't have a relationship with your child. It's hard to explain that, and it's kind of it's embarrassing. You know, you can have a man. He could be degreed up, great in his career. He could be in all these social organizations. Stand up guy. And then when a conversation comes up about, do you have children or do you have children? And people, you may say, yeah, I do. And people will be like, well, I've never seen you, talk about your children, or I never seen, I don't, I don't really, I haven't really, I didn't know you had a child. It wasn't evident. And sometimes it's just hard to explain. It's just like, you don't come off as a deadbeat or anything like that. So what's going on? And a lot of people, it's hard for them to conceptualize that. It's like, wow, this stand-up guy, this model of the community, he has a son or he has a daughter, and he doesn't have a relationship with the daughter. So it's embarrassing to it. It's very embarrassing. It's hard to explain. And then on top of that, depending on how your children grow up, if they grow up to resent the father, or if they have a mind on their own and they realize that, their mom, manipulated them, you never know how your children are going to respond. You know how it feels. You imagine how 50 Cent feels. Oh yeah, we'll use 50 Cent for example. Imagine how 50 Cent feels. He's obviously a success, and I know it hurts him. I know part of it hurts him that he doesn't have a relationship with his son. People know he has a child. People look at successful men, their sons, to be, following their footsteps. And it's embarrassing for him to not have that relationship with his son. And it's hard for people to explain. It was like, okay, he made enough money, so it wasn't like he could be a financial deadbeat. But whatever happened with him and his son's mother created him not to have a relationship. Not that 50 Cent's social status is tainted. People respect him, but he would be even more revered if he was able to demonstrate or experience and show that he's a great father as well. That's important to a man. You want to say, okay, I'm successful at business. I did well in these various fields, and on your resume, like, excellent father. A woman or women have taken that away from men's resume to be an excellent father. Women get to have that on their resume, whether they're a good mother or not. Most of the time, to the child, they're going to look at their mom as a good mom. Men do not get to check that box to say they was a good father. And that ruins, for a lot of men, it ruins their social status, because they can't poke their chests out to talk about how great of the father they are. And a lot of these men have so much potential, or have so much potential to be great fathers. And it's embarrassing, and it's hurtful. The second thing, this is 2 out of 3. The second thing, how women have ruined the social status for men is divorces. Is divorce. Shout out to Burt Ross. Good morning. We all know by now that in the United States, about 80% of divorces filed have been by women. 80%. So that means that for whatever reason, because most of it is irreconcilable differences, whatever reason, women have ended divorce or filed for divorce 80%, which is very, 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 very high. We can have a different conversation on why women do that, but to make a long story short, women file for divorce really shows us that most women really don't like the idea of marriage, because to divorce means you don't want to be married, and to divorce at that such of a high rate by women, it shows that women really don't want to be married. Or some guys will say women don't want to be wise. They just like the checkbox of being married. Somebody found them worthy or valuable in marriage. Just like children, women want to check that box of being a mother, but they want to be a mother. They've shown that they want to be a mother without the father having control of decision making power. So you see how a lot of women use men for what they want. And once they get what they want, they don't need you anymore. So when it comes to social status, is that when a man gets married, that elevates his social status in a lot of ways. It elevates his status. You're successful, you are accomplished, now you're married. It elevates your social status. People show a lot of respect to married people. It's respected in all aspects of society. So for a man, when he gets married, or when he decides to marry a woman, especially a man of high stature, high caliber, or a man that thinks highly of himself, it is under the assumption that this man has had a rigorous process of vetting and being patient in selecting a woman. And so that means that man is very confident that he made a right decision in picking a wife. Men don't divorce like women do because men care about their social status. I know so many men that are accomplished, stand up. Guys in my fraternal organization, guys that I work with, we know celebrities, politicians, so many great men have had to deal with that divorce on their record. Men do not like that. Men do not like that stain. Women, they don't care. They don't care about, I ain't gonna say, most women don't care. They don't, or if they do care, they don't care as much as men. Men do not like the stain of divorce on their record. For a man's status and reputation, it does not look good, because, and just seeing people over the years I knew personally, is that, a lot of men that you respect, they give advice to other men about relationships, that have demonstrated that they can choose good women and that they can lead and they can be respected. when you're divorced, when a woman divorces you and you have this high status, it affects that man because he can't really flex or boast. Men have a lot of ego and pride. Like we want to, we're not like women where women want to be the envy of their female counterparts. Men just want to have respect and admiration from their male counterparts. So I know a lot of guys that, even when I was going in and out my dating experience, in college and high school, and these guys used to be like, man, you need to do this, or you picking the wrong type of women, blah blah blah. And you have to respect them because they haven't made bad decisions when it comes to women. But then they finally got married, and then whether it's 5, 10 years, or 1 year, they got divorced. And you like, what happened? And it's so embarrassing for a man because he did everything right. He did everything right. He took his time. He was a provider, loyal. They did all the right things and still end up getting divorced. Men can move on. Men know they can find other women. It's never about, for most men, it's never about if they could replace a woman, but men will be men will settle. Men will be in a subpar marriage, especially if there's kids involved. Men will sacrifice a lot to protect their name. To protect their name. They want the respect from their children. This ties into the first thing I was saying. They want respect from their children, and they want to protect their name. They don't want their name tied to divorce. They don't want their children not to respect them because they wasn't able to be in their life. So that status is important. Men want respect from their children. Regardless if the child is in the wrong or the mother was in the wrong, if the child doesn't respect the father, people on the outside looking in, they're going to look at that as the reflection of that man. Even if he did everything he could, it has nothing to do with why that child doesn't respect him. Because if the whole world respects you, I use 50 Cent for example. If so many people, let's say, respect 50 Cent for example and admire him, but his son don't respect him, regardless of how successful 50 Cent is, for example, it hurts him to not have respect from his son. It hurts. It hurts the status. People can always throw that at you. Your son or your daughter don't respect you. So it's very serious when it comes to women. They need to understand that when you keep children away from stand-up men that's well respected, it has a huge effect on their social status. When you divorce a man, salute Keith. When you divorce a man, that's a stand-up guy, and nobody's perfect. When you divorce a guy, it affects his status, and status is very important. Men live to have respect. You don't have to like us. We just want respect. Now, the third and last thing I'm going to talk about on how women ruin social status is I've come to find that a lot of men have become adults and discovered that either one, the man that raised them wasn't their biological father, or two, they discovered that they they was raised by another man that they was told was their father, but they end up finding out another man is their biological father. Or you got men that just don't know who their biological father is, you know. Um, and so, and I can relate, and I, unfortunately, I'm, I relate to this. I don't know who my biological father is. But that's a that's a different conversation. But it's embarrassing because it's on one hand, if you know who your biological father is, but you never met him, but you know his name, you know something about him, at least you know who this man is. But it's a lot of situations where men don't even know, the mom doesn't even know who the father is. And that ruins a lot of men's reputation, or ruins their social status as well. Because a man who wants to walk in a room, and unfortunately this is common in the Black community, but you know, who wants to walk in a room to talk about their family or parents, because especially going overseas and traveling, most women most women, they know who, for the most part, they know who their parents are. And so they always ask questions like, how are your parents? They don't ask, how is your mother or how is your father? They ask about your parents, because it's, for them, it's, they have an understanding that you are aware of both parents. In a lot of cases, it's not like that. You have to explain or admit to say, um, I don't know, I don't know who my father is, or I was raised thinking a man was my father, but he wasn't. And it's embarrassing for a lot of men. It's embarrassing to say I don't know who my father is. Women may say, well, you don't know what happened and things like that. But we're not talking about the reason why or what happened. We're talking about how men feel about it, how it's embarrassing. People judge you based on your parents, whether it's fair or not. They want to know where you came. They characterize how you came from. Did you come from a two-parent household? You know, your mom lied to you about another man being a father. Now you got people that might look at your mom a certain way, like, okay, she, what I mean, I thought she was this sweet old lady. Now I know she got some vindictive ways. And a lot of men don't really want to, a lot of men don't share or talk about it. They keep it to themselves, because men want to have that status of saying, I know who my father was. I know where my legacy comes from. I know where my name comes from. And that's how I started the stream, talking about, legacy and name. Your name wants to mean something. A lot of men carry last names from a man that's not even their father. They don't even carry, they're carrying a name that has no bloodline to them. You got successful men that have built their name to only find out that the name that they built for themselves is, basically isn't their biological fathers. So a lot of us, our names are really now first generation when it comes to the names, because we can't tie it to our biological father. You know, a lot of women ruin, whether it's our mothers, baby mamas, or even wives. Women have ruined men's social status, whether they realize it or not. But it's your boy No Excuse on today's morning rant.